Hello and welcome to today's episode of Comms Business Live. I'm Charlotte, editor of Comms Business, and I'm delighted to be joined by Scott Goodwin, Senior Vice President for EMEA and Managing Director at NetSapiens. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hi Charlotte, hope you're well.
You too. So today we're going to be talking about growth through acquisition. This topic stems from the reality that merger and acquisition activity in the unified communication space is at an all-time high. Consolidation is happening at a vendor level, whether that's Broadsoft joining Cisco or Vonage joining forces with Ericsson. But it's also happening at the service provider level, with many entrepreneurial-led businesses coming together. So Scott, what is driving this merger and acquisition activity?
I think several things, Charlotte, really. I think when you look at the vendors, they're seeking to obviously either bridge product gaps that they might have within their portfolio. I think it's also good to take out some competition also as well. It gives it the opportunity for hardening of some pricing in those areas.
Yeah.
I think on the service provider market, it is a really interesting dynamic that's going on. I think there's a perfect storm really brewing there. I think you've found private equity likes service providers a lot in terms of the repeatable cash flows that they bring into the business. Also, the fact that they've done very well, one of the few sectors that did extremely well throughout the pandemic as people started to change their working patterns and behaviors. But yeah, the annuity-based incomes that they generate is very attractive to private equity. And also there's a lot of them. It's very fragmented as well. So it does give the ability to find good value and then start to build and grow organizations through a roll-up plan.
And what are the implications of all of that for the service provider community?
Well, for the service providers, I think there'll be less of them, and the ones that are around will become much bigger organizations. They'll have many more resources that will be available to them. They'll be much more structured than it currently is today. So I think you'll see that. I think that might transform itself into a hardening of pricing in that market. You would think with these organizations that have got more resources available to them as well, that end users would benefit in terms of the services that they receive.
And something that you touched on briefly a couple of questions back is what is known as a roll-up strategy. So for anyone that's unfamiliar with the term, can you just talk us through what a roll-up strategy is?
Yeah, so organizations have basically two different ways that they can grow their businesses. They can do it organically, or they can do it through acquisition. Roll-up strategies are the latter of that. Rather than grow organically, they'll find organizations that look similar to them, where effectively they can roll them into the business that they have today. They can seek to find where there's kind of overlaps of resources. They can remove those costs or apply that cost benefit to other areas of this business where it can then start to grow more quickly and more efficiently. And again, the more efficient that you are as an organization means that you can pass those efficiencies and that management style or capability through to the acquired businesses that you're taking. I think what's also interesting, particularly in that service provider space as well, is we're kind of 25 years now post liberalization of the telecoms market. There's been a lot of entrepreneurs that have started those businesses up over that period of time. They're all in their kind of 50s and 60s now, and there's many of them that are seeking to kind of take their chips off the table. So it's a strange market. There's money out there that are backing management teams, and there are also active sellers that say, kind of looking to go to Portugal and enjoy the weather.
I don't blame them.
Not me either.
And why is the platform so important in achieving success when you are scaling through a roll-up strategy in that way?
So the real, what does good look like in a roll-up strategy is your ability to find fair value when you're out there and you're acquiring a platform or you're acquiring a customer base. So if you're a business that's got a Broadsoft platform, it's quite easy for you to be able to absorb another Broadsoft customer base, for all the obvious reasons that would be there. But there are much fewer broadside customer bases than there are customer bases in general out there as well. So you're usually going to pay a premium for something like that. So that's the first thing to kind of consider, is that if you can open up the options for what it is that you can actually acquire, you're probably going to find better value in the market. If you can roll up an Asterisk as easy as you can roll up a 3CX, as easy as you can roll up a BroadSoft platform or whatever. It doesn't really matter. If anything, if all of them are equal in terms of your ability to get, to digest them, then that will give you a much better price that you can actually start to negotiate, because you'll have more options essentially.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you have to think about is, how do I minimize the customer disruption? How do I make, when I move to a new platform, how do I make that journey for the end user as good and as a positive thing as you can possibly do? And that means, not giving them any reductions of functionality. That means that, they don't have to change any particular handsets that they would bear. They didn't ask for the acquisition essentially. So you just want to make sure there's continuity of service that goes through. But in the meantime, what's important for the service provider is to migrate everything into a centralized position, get control over it, get visibility of what's going on in it, and then start to, from that point, be able to cross-sell and upsell and do whatever it needs to do, but integrate it with its back office systems and all these kind of things. So it's a really difficult equation to balance, really, because you're looking for synergies, but you don't want to disrupt the customers. And in order to disrupt the customers, you have to put them on standard models. And in order to be able to support the customers, you usually have to put them in standard models and then be able to realize the benefits from it. It's very difficult for them to do. And I think with our platforms, is what we enable people to do is to take whatever service is out there on whatever platform they've got, and you can clone it. And that means there'll be minimal disruption to the end user. It doesn't really matter what devices are deployed at the edge or within the customer's premises. As far as they'll know, it becomes almost imperceptible, the change that moves. And that means you can digest your acquisitions far quickly, far more fast, and you can get on with the next one as well. Having taken centralized control, having been able to provide, good customer outcomes as a process, enhanced customer support or whatever, certainly then there'll be no feature differentiation. And then you can then start to offer customers, improved services thereafter, which makes them trust the new acquired business, the new company really well, and they're more open to buying more services from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just such a complex task really needs a robust strategy, and it sounds like the platform is really core to making that as seamless as possible.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference into the outcome that you'll have. Buy your customer bases cheaper and get better outcomes once you've done it, and maybe be able to execute faster.
Definitely. And I believe you're about to publish a white paper laying out exactly this, so that importance of the platform when doing a roll-up strategy. How can people get hold of that?
Yeah, it's available today. I think you're going to post it on a link beneath this video cast. If people just go on there, they can register their details and it'll be download. And we lay all of this out in very clear points about how the benefits that can bring to organizations that are going on a roll-up. Lovely. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Comms Business Live. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. My pleasure, Charlotte. Lovely to see you again. You too. And so much insight into what's happening in the M&A space and what this means for service providers. If you'd like to discuss this in more detail with Scott and the NetSapiens team, there are some links in the video description to guide you on your way alongside that white paper that we just talked through. But for now, goodbye, everyone. Thank you.